live video, so it looks like we have another release this time for PS5 Firmware 6.50. So we're now starting to see 6.x and 7.x get ported over here. So from Echo Stretch on Twitter here, he says K-Stuff for PS5. 6.50 huge shout out to Slay's Govey for creating this project. We also couldn't have started it without the help of Zico, so a massive thanks to them and a big appreciation as Best well to Buzzer and all Azoff. So it is available for 6.50. I would still consider this a test payload just because of the fact that it's not been officially released yet, in the sense that there's not a public download on GitHub. But if you have a GitHub account, you can download it. So if we head over here, you can see it was pushed 12 hours ago, and if we scroll down, we have the payload here that you can download if you have a GitHub account that you are signed into. So since this has been posted, I have been seeing quite a few people asking how to load 6.x or 7.x firmware. Of course, because we don't have access to the web browser exploit on those higher firmwares. So we can either use the Blu-ray exploit or the Louis exploit. So I'm gonna show you how to actually get so that you can send these K-Stuff payloads. If you're on a 6.x or 7.x firmware, we'll start with the Blu-ray because I believe that's the one that the majority of people are going. So in order to set up the Blu-ray you are going to need a Blu-ray writer, as well as a blank Blu-ray disc, preferably BD-read discs, because those are the rewritable versions, where you can write any new updates to the same disc and overwrite them. And whereas obviously the BD-read discs can only be written to once, get a BD-read disc if you can, because then you can just use the same disc for multiple UH versions. So once you got your hands on that, just put in your blank disc into your Blu-ray writer, and then from there we're going to download a couple of things. So we need to get Hammer 83's PS5 jar loader. Just download the latest release here. So I'm gonna go ahead and download PS5 jar loader for 0.1.1. So I'm gonna go ahead and download that ISO. And then also we want to download from Cryo the elf loader jar file that we want to load. So we're also gonna go ahead and download that. And then finally, we also need something to burn the image file to the disk. So we're gonna be using image burn for this. So go ahead and download that as well. So I'm using a virtual machine that's running on my server, just because I don't have a disk drive slot in my case. And it's funny seeing all of the people who are using these kind of Frankenstein Blu-ray burner setups with their Blu-ray burners hanging out the side of their case. Because modern case manufacturers don't make 5 1/4 inch drive bays anymore. So I've had to basically install mine in my server and just access it through a virtual machine. But anyway, what we're gonna do here is go ahead and load up image burn. And then from here, we're gonna go to write image file to disk. And then we just take our jar loader file and drag it inside. Or you can click this button here to browse for it manually. And from there, make sure our disk is in. So you can see it's found BD-RE. We've got our disk drive showing up here. We can verify after write to make sure that the data has been written correctly. It says supported write speeds are 2 by. So I'm gonna just make sure my write speed is set to 2x. Whatever it supports. Whatever your drive supports. And then from here, we just click the button here to write the image file to the disk. And because this disk already has data written to it, it's not empty and it will be overwritten. Do you want to continue? I can just say yes. It would not allow me to write it if it wasn't a rewritable disk. So that is why BD-read discs are definitely recommended here. And then you just write the PS5 jar loader ISO to the disk. And this honestly shouldn't take too long. Even though it's only at 2.x write speed, there's not much data to be written there, so if that's it done already, it cycles the tray and then it will do a verification step just to check to make sure everything is good. Okay, so now it's verifying and verification operation completed successfully. You get the little image burn jingle and you should be all good to go. With the disc inserted, we can head over to media and we've got the disc player. And it should say PS5 jar loader. So we're gonna play the disc. Now you may get some pop-up asking you to enable network connectivity for the Blu-ray. If you do get some kind of prompt like that when you first run the disc, just say yes. Another issue you might not allowing you to launch the disc. If HDCP is disabled, so you can head over into your settings. And I believe it's in system settings. You can find the option to enable HDCP in order for the Blu-ray to work properly. So anyway, once we've got the Blu-ray up and running, we can scroll over to the right here to the disk jar loader and scroll down to the UMTX snapshot and press X on that. And that will run the kernel exploit to essentially jailbreak the console. So we're just gotta wait for this to run to completion. Once it's done, you should have the option to press X to return to the menu. So we'll press X and it should say kernel read right available in the top left-hand corner. From there, we can then go over to the remote jar loader. Now, if you're using a newer version than for .1.1, I suspect you might have an ELF loader option in this menu here. So if you see an ELF loader option in here, you can just select that and it will run the ELF loader. Right now, because it's still early days, I need to send it manually because it's not an option here in the menu. So I'm gonna go over to the remote jar loader option here and press X on that instead. And then it should say it is waiting for connections on your PS5's IP on 9.0.2. So note down that IP address there. And then from there, we can switch on over to our computer, okay? So now we switch back to the computer. And we open up a payload injector like Netcat GUI. We want to enter the PS5 IP address in the box and the port 9.0.5 take the ELF loader jar file we downloaded and copy it into Netcat GUI. You can click this button to browse for it manually. And then just click the inject payload button here. And when you do that on the PS5, it should execute the ELF loader. So we can see we get a debug settings enabled and then serving ELF loader on our PS5's IP on 9.0.2.1. So that's the ELF loader now up and running. So what we can do now is we can exit out of the Blu-ray disc. We can head to the switcher disc player and close app. And that should take us back out to the home screen. So the ELF loader will be running in the background now. So we can just inject any payloads we want from the PlayStation home screen, and there we go. It's now closed. Now all we need to do is actually send KStuff itself. Now, you should be able to use Netcat GUI for this, I believe. It should theoretically work. But if you have any problems trying to load it with Netcat GUI, I would recommend using Alazif's payload sender instead, which I will again leave in the description. So again, it's the same thing. You enter your IP and the port 9.0. This time, you just want to browse for where KStuff is located. Select your KStuff ELF file here. So it's loaded in, and then you can just send the payload. When we click send payload, you will see that it should get sent, and there it is. PS5 KStuff successfully loaded. And now we should be able to load our PS for fake packages. So I've got a USB drive here that's formatted in exFAT format. And I'm gonna take a PS for fake package. So PT, of course. We'll go ahead and copy this over and see if we can get this version of KStuff. So if we open up PT, you can see this is a fake package version. So we'll go ahead and plug that back into our PS5. And now if we head into settings, we should have our debug settings enabled, game and our package installer. And then we can install that package file that we put on there. Always make sure you plug your USB drives into the back because those are higher speed. So if you have a fast USB drive, then you're gonna get better transfer rates. It's gonna install faster. So we'll go ahead and do that. So there we go. It should be ready to play, and if KStuff is working correctly, we should be able to launch it. And I probably shouldn't have picked PT because it takes a long time to actually start up as a fake package. So you get a black screen for a long time. I'll just fast forward this maybe, and yeah, there we go. You can see it is now playing here on our PS5. So we do in fact have KStuff up and running. So that is how you get KStuff loaded, using the Blu-ray version of the exploit. I'll quickly go over how to set this up using the Lua version of the exploit to OK. So I've gone ahead and rebooted the PS5. So we're no longer running KStuff or the jailbreak anymore. So we're not able to run our PS for fake packages. Now let's try and set things up using the Lua version of the exploit. Using our Artemis engine game. Now I already have things set up to the point where when I run the game here, it will load the remote Lua loader because we have the modified save file already installed. I'm not gonna cover how to set this up here in this video because I've already done a full Lua exploit which shows you how to fully set this up and get the modified save file on your game so that you're able to run this here. So if you don't already have that set up, check out the guide that will be linked down in the video description. But once you get to this point, we can then go ahead and switch over to our computer. So there are some tools that make it easier to send these Lua files. But because we want to be making sure that we're sending the latest UH payloads as soon as they are available, we're going to download and send them using the original project. So we're going to head over to the remote Lua loader project, go to the code here, and download it as a zip file. And then we'll open that up. And then from there, what we can do is just copy this over to our desktop and replace any files. So now we can just go into this folder, go into the payloads folder, and then right-click in this location, open in terminal, and then from here, we can type in Python and press enter and see if Python is installed. If it's installed and running like this, we can then exit with open and closed brackets just to test if you did not have Python installed. That should have opened up the Microsoft and taken you to Python, where you can just click the option to get and install it, and then that will get it up and running. So from there, what we can do is enter the following command, right here, which is python send_lua.py, the IP address of your PS5, then the port number, and then umtx.lua. And then we can just press enter, and that will run the umtx kernel exploit on the PS5. And you'll see how fast this normally runs here, and it's done. So just a couple of seconds, kernel exploits already finished. So then we can just press the up arrow key on our keyboard, enter the command, and then change it to the elf loader. solf_loader.lua, and then press enter. And that will now spawn the elf loader on our console. So if we switch back over to the console and wait a few seconds for this to spin up. And as you can see, it is now up and running, serving elf loader on 9.0.2. And once the message disappears, and it says it's done here in the output window, we can then go ahead and just exit out of this game. So we can close the game, and we should be all good to send case stuff again. So once again, I'll switch back over here, and we'll go ahead and use either Netcat GUI, or we'll use Alice's new payload injector, just to make sure. So again, IP address port no 2190. And of course, we also want to enter the ELF file location for our case stuff. And then we can just send the payload, and once again switch back over. You can see PS5 case stuff successfully loaded. Now, if you're still running into problems where stuff is not executing properly, it's potentially crashing with the Lua exploit, you need to make sure you are using the latest ELF loader for that Lua exploit. So what you can do just to double check and install the latest one, the version that you downloaded here, that we copied over to our desktop. If we go into the save data folder, we have the ELF loader file right here. This is the actual ELF loader that is being executed in your save file. So what you can do is, you can actually just copy that over to the data folder. We open up Netcat GUI or some other payload injector. Download the FTP payload from the PS5 dev repo, which will be linked in the description. Copy the FTP payload in here and inject it. Once you're running the ELF loader on port 9021, so click inject, and that will run the FTP payload on your PS5. At that point, you can then open up an FTP client, like enter the PS5's IP in the host box, and enter 2121 is the port number. And quick connect. Then from there, you can just go into the data folder here on the hard drive. You will most likely not have anything in here. It will just be blank, and then from there, we can open up our remote Lua loader and go into our save data folder. Take the elfloader.elf file here and copy it into the data folder, so it's just sitting in there. And then that way, whenever you load the ELF loader again, it should look for the one on the data folder and load that one, instead of trying to load the one that is on the actual save file itself. And also, if you've not updated the actual save file, runs the remote Lua loader in quite a while, in multiple weeks or months, then definitely go ahead and install the latest version, just to make sure you have all of the latest save files up to date. And once again, we'll try and load PT, and it is now loading. So that is how you can get set up using both the Blu-ray exploit and the Lua exploit, the new test payloads that are coming out now for 6.x and 7.x. At the time of recording this video, it's only 6.50 that has been added, but I suspect we will shortly see other 6.x and potentially 7.x firmwares fairly soon as well. So I thought it was probably a good idea just to make this guide. So for anybody on 6.x or 7.x, when there's new case stuff builds coming out, you'll be able to load them by either using the Blu-ray or the Lua exploit by just following the steps here in this video. Yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the